Sounds like your sleigh's about to get prepped for the season. At Valvoline Instant Oil Change, we don't just change your oil. We also check your tire pressure, battery, wipers, and lights. Just stay cozy in your car and let our trained pros handle the rest. No appointment needed.
LifeAudio.
Good morning, friends and faithful listeners, and welcome to the Bible Explained on this lovely Monday morning. I hope you all had a fantastic Christmas weekend and that you are ready to start your week nice and strong by reading the Bible with me and sharing a cup of coffee with me. Today we're going to be in 2 Chronicles chapter 16, talking about Asa during the end of his life and how his heart strayed away from Yahweh and some of the problems that happened right after that. We'll get into it in just a second. Now, faithful listeners, before we begin this episode, do me a solid by listening to a quick word from one of our sponsors.
Need a daily spark of hope and direction? Let the Daily Bible app from Salem Media be that spark. This free Android app delivers an uplifting verse each morning, plus reading plans, devotions, and trusted podcasts from leaders like Joyce Meyer and Rick Warren. Prefer to listen instead? The Daily Bible app reads verses, reading plans, and chapters aloud, handy for the headphones moment of your day. Choose from versions like ESV, NIV, KJV, and more, and bookmark favorites to revisit later. Share inspiring messages with loved ones right from the app. Feel God's presence in every notification. Search for Daily Bible app on Google Play and begin your day with hope, purpose, and peace.
Moto Casino, America's social casino.
Welcome to Moto Casino, where the excitement never ends, with thousands of the hottest free-to-play social casino games, fastest payouts, and the best promotions in the industry. No tricks or gimmicks. Owned and operated in the USA.
Moto Casino is a free-to-play social casino. No purchase necessary. 21 plus to play. Void where prohibited.
Sign up today for a generous welcome bonus.
Moto Casino, America's social casino.
Download the Moto Casino app today.
Alrighty, now let's get into this episode. We're going to be reading 2 Chronicles 16, the entire chapter, and finishing up Asa's reign and the end of Asa's life and some of the problems that end up happening because Asa just did not trust in God at the end of his life. So I'll be reading this as I always do from the WEB version, but grab your favorite version of the Bible and also your cup of coffee or a cup of tea this morning. I've got my tea right here with me. I am drinking blueberry tea today, which is my favorite tea and the one that I normally drink if I do, in fact, choose to drink tea, because tea is just so much less enjoyable than coffee. But if I'm going to drink tea, I might as well drink one that I enjoy. So yes, this blueberry one does the trick for me. So grab your favorite beverage and let's go ahead and read 2 Chronicles 16, the entire thing. Let's give reverence to God's word together. In the 36th year of Asa's reign, Baasha, king of Israel, went up against Judah and built Ramah, that he might not allow anyone to go out or come in to Asa, king of Judah. Then Asa brought out silver and gold out of the treasuries of Yahweh's house and of the king's house, and sent to Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, who lived at Damascus, saying, "Let there be a treaty between you and me, as there was between my father and your father. Behold, I have sent you silver and gold. Go and break your treaty with Baasha, king of Israel, that he may depart from me." Ben-Hadad listened to King Asa and sent the captains of his armies against the cities of Israel, and they struck Ijon, Dan, Abel-Maim, and all the storage cities of Naphtali. When Baasha heard of it, he stopped building Ramah and let his work cease. Then Asa the king took all Judah, and they carried away the stones and timber of Ramah, with which Baasha had built, and he built Geba and Mizpah with them. At that time, Hanani the seer came to Asa, king of Judah, and said to him, "Because you have relied on the king of Syria, and have not relied on Yahweh your God, therefore the army of the king of Syria has escaped out of your hand. Weren't the Ethiopians and the Lubim a huge army with chariots and exceedingly many horsemen? Yet because you relied on Yahweh, he delivered them into your hand. For Yahweh's eyes run back and forth throughout the whole earth to show himself strong in the behalf of them whose heart is perfect toward him. You have done foolishly in this, for from now on you will have wars." Then Asa was angry with the seer and put him in the prison, for he was in a rage with him because of this thing. Asa oppressed some of the people at the same time. Behold, the acts of Asa, first and last. Behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Judah and of Israel. In the 39th year of his reign, Asa was diseased in his feet. His disease was exceedingly great. Yet in his disease, he didn't seek Yahweh, but just the physicians. Asa slept with his fathers and died in the 41st year of his reign. They buried him in his own tomb, which he had dug out for himself in David's city, and laid him in the bed which was filled with sweet odors and various kinds of spices prepared by the perfumer's art, and they made a very great fire for him. So we've been learning a lot about King Asa so far, and Asa was a really good king. Especially to start out, he was a king that it said his heart was perfect before Yahweh. In fact, if you turn to 1 Kings chapter 15, that's what it says in verse 14. The high places were not taken away. Nevertheless, the heart of Asa was perfect with Yahweh all his days. So Asa had a perfect heart with Yahweh, and that doesn't mean that Asa never sinned, because clearly in this chapter he definitely sinned. But that means that Asa never worshipped anything other than Yahweh his entire life. And that's something actually pretty uncommon for the kings in Israel and Judah's history. Generally, all the kings would start worshiping the idols of the other nations. But Asa was one of the few kings of Judah that did not worship any other god other than Yahweh himself. And so that's why Asa's heart was perfect before Yahweh. But that doesn't mean he wasn't going to sin. And so we actually read about some of his sins in today's portion. It says in verse 1, in the 36th year of Asa's reign, Baasha, the king of Israel, went up against Judah and built Ramah, that he might not allow anyone to go out or to come in to Asa, king of Judah. So don't forget, Israel and Judah, though they were originally one nation, they ended up splitting after Solomon died. It was right after Solomon's son took the throne. He caused an immediate civil war between the two nations, and so Israel split into two. And so Israel became the northern parts of Israel, and Judah became the southern part of Israel. So Asa was the king of Judah, the southern part, and Baasha at this time was the king of Israel. And Baasha was not a good king. You can read about the tumultuous history of Baasha in 1 Kings 15 and 16 if you would like to. I'm not going to go back over it today, but Baasha was not a good king. And so it says right here that Baasha built up Ramah, that he might not allow anyone to come in or go out to King Asa of Judah. Now, this was actually pretty problematic for a few reasons. The first reason was that this was kind of a declaration of war that Baasha was doing to Asa. That was the first problem. But the second problem was that this was cutting people off from being able to worship at the temple in Jerusalem, because the location of Ramah was only a few miles north of Jerusalem. And that was the only road that people could take to get from Jerusalem into Israel. So Baasha, who was in control of Ramah at this time, ended up fortifying that city and basically cutting it off so that no pilgrims could travel from Israel down to Jerusalem to worship Yahweh. And part of the reason Baasha may have done this was because he didn't want any more of his people leaving to go to Judah, because that was a big problem in times past for Israel. Since Israel had introduced a state-run religion, a lot of the devout people in Israel actually left, and a lot of the Levites left as well to go down to Judah. And that actually made Judah a lot stronger, because these devout people and Levites are leaving Israel and making their home in Judah. So Baasha doesn't want that happening again. So he is cutting off every pathway into Jerusalem so that his people no longer can move to Judah if they don't like what's going on in Israel any longer. But this was also a declaration of war. And Asa, the king of Judah, certainly understood this. So it says that Baasha, the king of Israel, went up against Judah and built Ramah, that he might not allow anyone to go out or come in to Asa, king of Judah. So Asa, in retaliation, it says, brings out the silver and the gold out of the treasuries of Yahweh's house and the king's house, and sent them to Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, who lived in Damascus, saying, let there be a treaty between you and me, as there was a treaty between my father and your father. Behold, I have sent you silver and gold. Go and break your treaty with Baasha, king of Israel, that he may depart from me. So that was Asa's idea. as to how he could get rid of Baasha, the king of Israel, was to make a treaty with the king of Damascus, or the Syrian king. Apparently, this same Syrian king had a treaty going on with Baasha at this time. But Asa sends over all of this money, like tons of money, and ends up convincing this king of Syria to break his treaty with Baasha. And this king is more than happy to do so. He's like, yeah, I'll take your money and stab Baasha in the back. That's totally fine. And so that's what ends up happening. It says that Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, listened to King Asa and sent the captains of his armies against the cities of Israel. And they struck Ijon and Dan and Abel-Maim and all the storage cities of Naphtali. Now, don't forget, Baasha, the king of Israel, is now in Ramah right now, like trying to build that city up. But he hears that the Syrian king is terrorizing the northern tribes of Israel. So he immediately leaves Ramah to go and live somewhere closer to this conflict, so that if this ever happens again, he will be there to protect his people, because Ramah was way too far away from all of this. You know, Ramah was right on the border of Judah, way too far away from the northern tribes of Israel. So he leaves, and this looks like a big success for Asa. And Asa immediately goes into Ramah and steals all of the materials that Baasha was using to build the city up. That's what it says in verse 6. Then Asa the king took all Judah, and they carried away the stones and timber of Ramah, with which Baasha had built, and he built Geba and Mizpah with them. So he stole all of the materials that Baasha was using, which is kind of funny. So this looks like a big success. You know, I'm sure Asa was very proud of himself for thinking this through. But there's a few problems going on here, as we're about to discover. In verse 7, it says, at that time, Hanani the seer came to Asa the king of Judah. And we don't really know who Hanani the seer is, other than the fact that he's mentioned as the father of another prophet later on down the line. And this other prophet actually went to kings of Israel to tell them what they were doing wrong. But this particular prophet, or seer, as they're sometimes called, went to Asa with a message from God. And here's the message. Asa, because you have relied on the king of Syria and have not relied on Yahweh your God, therefore the army of the king of Syria has escaped out of your hand. Weren't the Ethiopians and the Lubim a huge army with chariots and exceedingly many horsemen? Yet because you relied on Yahweh, he delivered them into your hand. For Yahweh's eyes run back and forth throughout the whole earth to show himself strong in the behalf of them whose heart is perfect toward him. You have done foolishly in this, for from now on you will have wars. And Asa hears this message and does not respond positively at all. He flies into a rage, is what it says. And he actually puts this man Hanani into prison. He puts him in the stocks because of how angry he is at this message from God. But why would he be so angry over this? I would say because Asa probably thought he was doing the right thing. When he sent all of that money to the king of Syria, he probably thought, I am protecting all of these people who want to come down to Jerusalem and worship God at the temple. I am opening up the routes for these pilgrims to come down and worship at the temple the way they should be worshiping, instead of that crappy state-run religion that Israel has going on up there. I'm not going to trap them up in Israel when they could be down here worshiping. And Asa, instead of asking God, is this the right thing to do, just went ahead and did it. And when it was successful, Asa probably thought he was truly doing the right thing. And don't forget, this was later on in Asa's reign. It actually says this was the 36th year of Asa's reign. And Asa reigned for 41 years before he died. So Asa was growing quite old and very set in his ways at this point in time. And I think this was causing him possibly to either have some pride, or it was causing him to have some fear. Because it could also be that Asa was truly fearful of Baasha. It could be that Asa wasn't thinking at all about the pilgrims who wanted to come to Jerusalem to worship God, but he was scared that Baasha was right on his doorstep, only a few miles away from him, and that terrified him maybe. So it could be that he was either feeling very prideful, or very fearful as he was getting older and coming to the end of his life. So he responds so negatively to this poor prophet who's only coming to him to tell him, hey, God is not happy with you because you actually allowed Syria to get away. They're a way bigger problem for you than Israel will ever be. Syria is the problem you should be dealing with, not Israel. And you allowed them to escape from your hands. And not only that, don't forget what it says. Asa actually took the money from Yahweh's house, like from the treasuries, and gave it to a pagan king. That money was supposed to be for the temple of God. That was money that people had donated to the temple. And it should never have gone to a pagan king just wanting to destroy people, wanting to stab people in the back. And who's to say he wouldn't do that to Asa very shortly down the line? And we know that Syria became a huge, huge problem for Israel and Judah not too long after this. Syria was always a problem for Israel and Judah. But there's one last thing I want to focus on here real quick that this prophet says in his prophecy. He says in verse 9, "For Yahweh's eyes run back and forth throughout the whole earth to show himself strong in the behalf of those whose heart is perfect toward him." And I think that is really beautiful because that verse means that God is looking for people who are worshiping him truly, who genuinely have faith, so that he can show himself strong. And actually, this prophet gives an example to Asa of how God did this for Asa in the past. He's like, don't you remember the Ethiopian army that came up against you? And that's talked about in the previous chapter, where 1 million Ethiopian soldiers came up against little old Judah. And Asa was like, this is a death sentence for me and my men. We on our own cannot do this. And so Asa actually cried out to God and was like, God, please help Judah get through this. And God actually did it. God completely destroyed that Ethiopian army on behalf of Judah because Judah had faith in God. And so this prophet is like, Asa, why aren't you having faith in God in this situation? You know, Israel is small compared to that Ethiopian army you faced. And yet you didn't have faith in God to take care of this situation for you. You thought you could do it on your own. God is looking to bless you, Asa, if you will just have faith in him. But Asa doesn't want to hear it. So after this, it says, Asa was angry with the seer and put him in prison, for he was in a rage with him because of this thing. And Asa oppressed some of the people at the same time. So it could be that there were other people speaking up about what Asa had done also. Just perhaps these people were angry and upset that Asa had actually taken the monies from the treasuries of God's house to give it to the king of Syria. Perhaps other people were on the side of this seer as well. And that was who Asa ended up oppressing. Anybody who disagreed with him or didn't say, yes, king, we are totally fine with everything you do. That is who Asa ended up oppressing. So Asa, right after this, it says, ends up getting a disease in his feet, which is kind of interesting. Now, it does not say anywhere in scripture that this disease was because Yahweh was angry at Asa. It does not say that, but that's what a lot of people imply, is because Asa refused to seek after Yahweh during the later times of his life, God allowed Asa to get this disease in his feet. And a lot of scholars think that the disease Asa got was either gout or some form of gangrene, which ended up being really bad and possibly even taking his life. It says in verse 12 here that in the 39th year of his reign, Asa was diseased in his feet. His disease was exceedingly great, yet in his disease he didn't seek Yahweh, but just the physicians. So that's how far Asa kind of fell away from God. You know, even though Asa never worshiped any other God in his entire lifetime, even in his old age, he stopped seeking God for matters he thought he could handle. Whether it was the matter of Baasha being right on his doorstep or this disease in his feet, he thought, you know, I can handle this. I can do this. I don't need to ask God for help in this situation. And so it says that Asa relied on the physicians instead of on God. And that's really sad Because God is the great physician. God is the ultimate healer. He is the one who gives power to the doctors to heal us. God is the one who gives us the medicines and herbs and anything else that can cure us of these diseases. God does it. And unfortunately, Asa was not asking God for his wisdom. He was relying on his own wisdom and the wisdom of these physicians. So Asa never heals of this disease in his feet. In fact, most people believe that it actually took his life. In verse 13, Asa slept with his fathers, and he died in the 41st year of his reign. They buried him in his own tomb, which he had dug out for himself in David's city. And they laid him in a bed which was filled with sweet odors and various kinds of spices prepared by perfumers' art. And they made a very great fire for him. So this fire that's being talked about here would not be like a cremation type of fire. This was something that the ancient people would do to honor the dead, especially a king. They would essentially have a big bonfire to honor the king's life when he had died. So that's what 2 Chronicles is talking about here. So Asa died with honor. You know, his people overall liked him. He died a good king, and the majority of his life, he was great for Judah. It wasn't until the last few years of his reign that he started to fall away from Yahweh. And not fully, because his heart was always perfect with Yahweh, is what Scripture says. And it says that multiple times. So he never fully fell away from Yahweh, but he just didn't seek Yahweh at the end of his life, either because of pride or because of fear. And ultimately, this sullied his good reputation. You know, I think a lot of people think of the Old Testament as just stories that don't really apply to us nowadays, but that couldn't be further from the truth. There's absolutely a message in there for us as well. So I'm going to end with Proverbs 9, verse 10, which says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." Alrighty, faithful listeners, before I end out this episode, please take a listen to this word from one of our sponsors.
This Christmas, give more than just a gift. Give encouragement, inspiration, and joy. In the Crosswalk Holiday Gift Guide, you'll discover a curated collection of meaningful books and devotionals that celebrate faith, family, and the real reason for the season. This Christmas, we invite you to share comfort, quiet, or excitement with each person on your gift list. From beautifully illustrated Bibles and devotionals to novels and picture books, this guide holds the perfect book for every reader, including yourself. So stuff those stories into stockings, wrap collections with care, tuck a book or two into your own nightstand, and join us in celebrating the wonder of reading this Christmas. Explore the Crosswalk Holiday Gift Guide and find something special for everyone on your list. Visit crosswalk.com/gift guide today.
You ain't heard about Moto Casino? Moto has real Vegas slots. Any game you can find on the floor in Vegas, you can play it on Moto. I like my slots hot. Moto's free to play, like food stamps, in line at the grocery store, at a funeral, in traffic. Keep your eyes on the road. Hop on Moto Casino. Moto Casino got jackpots that are bigger than my belly. Moto, America's hottest free-to-play social casino.
Download the Moto Casino app today.
Moto Casino is a social casino. Void where prohibited. No purchase necessary. Visit moto.us for more details.
Moto Casino, America's social casino.
So if you're interested in learning more about the topic we covered today, which is trusting God throughout your entire life, I actually highly recommend that you read the book of Ecclesiastes, because that book is just filled with knowledge and wisdom about what happens when you choose to not follow God for your entire life, or even during parts of your life. Ecclesiastes, such a great book, and I think Ecclesiastes 11 specifically is one of my favorite chapters, though I like 11 and 12 together. So check out the book of Ecclesiastes in your personal reading if that's something that interests you. All right, faithful listeners, I hope to see all of you guys tomorrow for an episode from 1 Timothy, where we're going to be finishing up the book of 1 Timothy very soon here. I think we only have one more chapter to go. So we're going to be finishing it up and moving into the book of 2 Timothy very soon. So I hope to see you guys over there tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. or whenever you choose to wake up and listen. Until then, happy listening and God bless. I just want to take a second to thank the team at LifeAudio for their partnership with me on the Bible Explained podcast. In fact, if you go to lifeaudio.com, you'll find dozens of other faith-centered podcasts in their network. They've got shows about prayer, Bible study, parenting, and more.